Welcome back to IGN Live at E3. I'm Brian Altano, and we're about to kick off a special E3 edition of Nintendo Voice Chat. Joining me today is Per Schneider, Fran Mirabella, and Bill Trinen from Treehouse.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming, Bill.
Thank you for having me.
These few people I see often, so it's not as special.
Yes.
But we usually get you around E3, which is a good time to talk to you, because usually you guys have magical new announcements to share with the world, which you did this year in the form of an entire booth dedicated to Super Mario Odyssey. We got a bunch of new Metroid Prime stuff. I want to specifically talk about Odyssey for a bit today, because it is the first sort of, what's the language on this? The first open sandbox?
Well, it's going back to sort of the sandbox style of gameplay that we introduced in the Mario series with Super Mario 64, and kind of carried on with Super Mario Sunshine. We look at the Galaxy games. They're sort of 3D roaming, free roaming games like that, but they're more linearly structured. So you know, each level you start at the beginning and you've got an end that you're getting to, whereas in, you guys know Super Mario 64 and Sunshine, it's a bit more open, a bit more exploratory. Yeah, there's a goal at the end that you're getting to, but it's really about kind of running around and doing your thing.
Sure. I still thought, in Mario 64, you kind of have a quest. You can see the name of the quest. By the way, I screamed so much over the two Metroids. That's why the voice is gone. But you have your quest and you go into Super Mario 64, you find the star and you're out.
And
but this game doesn't do that,
It doesn't do that. And so, we talked about it a little bit, and we had sort of a meeting with the developers. I think, Per, you were there. When we talk about sandbox, obviously in English it's a term that's kind of applied to a lot of different styles of games. And although we apply it to Mario, it really sort of originates from this term in Japanese called hakoniwa, which is a box garden or a garden in a box. And the concept there is that it's this sort of miniature landscape that you're recreating in a more compact space. And so they're, in the style of gardening that they do, they densely pack in all these different elements to replicate that landscape into this small space. Obviously, with Super Mario Odyssey, the spaces are not nearly as small as they were in Super Mario 64, but it's sort of this concept of layering all these elements in so that as you're running through and exploring, it's just packed with stuff. And so what they did was they decided, we don't want to, have you go in, find the one, power moon that you're trying to get, and then pull you back out. Instead, each level is packed with I'm not going to say how many, but lots and lots of power moons to find.
How many? I couldn't hear one.
Yeah,
He said millions. Millions and millions of moons.
Yeah, I don't know. It was 50,000.
Exactly.
Power moons.
Now, one of my favorite Mario games ever made was Super Mario 3D World, which came out for the Wii U. We're obviously all big fans of the Galaxy series and 3D World. The 3D World had much more sort of finite, enclosed levels, focused on multiplayer. I adored this game. I found everything in it, which was very difficult, which I really do appreciate. The way Nintendo games scale, specifically Mario stuff, you can go and get a couple coins, a couple stars, but to get everything, to beat Champions Run and all that kind of stuff, it's pretty hardcore. So what did you guys learn from working on this that you brought over to Super Mario Odyssey?
Well, I think the approach that they took with Super Mario 3D World and 3D Land on the 3DS before that was, obviously if you look at the overall evolution of the Mario series, you've got the side-scrolling Mario games that nowadays are represented by this sort of the new Super Mario Brothers series. And they wanted to find something that sort of took the simplicity of the course structure, right? And those games you're just running left to right. They wanted to have sort of that simplicity of course structure, but within a limited sort of 3D space. And so for the 3D Land and 3D World games, it feels a bit more like you're running through corridors to a certain extent, right?
Yeah.
And so this is sort of a step away from that, and it really is back to just the big open space of Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine. But I think where you'll see a little bit of similarity is that although these were start to finish more linear in the 3D World games, you had the ability to kind of run around and find all the stuff that was packed in there. What's nice is that in Super Mario Odyssey, you don't have a time limit for the levels, so you're able to do that sort of at your own pace. And of course, then you've got the capture mechanic, which means there's tons of stuff to throw Cappy, which is Mario's hat, at, and you're able to take control of those, as we saw in the video with the T-Rex.
I think the time limit thing that you just pointed out is something that I had not really considered. We, for transparency, we made an appointment with Nintendo to see the game at E3, and 12 of us showed up. So we're a little excited. And then we passed the Switch around, and we had it hooked up to the TV, and we all took turns playing, and every single person in the room went in a different direction. Specifically in New Donk City, as a former New Yorker, I have a lot of questions for you about all of that. But I think that's something that really stuck out to me, was that people are playing differently. People are going for harder to reach coins. Some people are trying to immediately jump on a scooter, like there's vehicles. So how does sort of all of that come together? Because it seems like you could just play for hours. Is there a worry of sort of losing players, or is that part of the fun?
No, I mean, even when you first jump into the level, you do get, and you saw it in the Super Mario 64 and Sunshine and whatnot, but you'll get sort of the pan through the level that gives you an indication of what that kind of end goal is. And yeah, it's easy to kind of stray off that path and find yourself doing other things. But what's nice is, you can go and collect a bunch of power moons, and then you're still got that goal at the end to get to.
You can kind of just mess around, right? Like I explored an area, talked to a guy, he gave me a little quest, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do that now. And then I saw a manhole cover on the ground, and I threw my hat at it. And I didn't expect anything to happen, but I became the manhole cover.
Don't be
and then
the man,
I was able
be
to
the manhole.
move. I was the manhole. I was able to shift aside, open the manhole, and jump the man into the hole.
Yes.
And there was an entire secret level down there.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
nuts.
it's like I say, it's filled with just fun little things, and it's kind of funny because when you first get to New Donk City and you've got all these people walking around, and you're hitting them all with your hat, and you're like, what's going on? This is actually a very good example of what you're seeing right there. The people that don't wear hats are the people that you can capture with Cappy.
Right.
And so in this case, this guy wasn't wearing a hat, and Mario threw the hat and became this man, and now he's trying to drive a remote control taxi.
So is Mario a man? Now that I have you here,
I mean,
yes,
sure, he's Mario.
Yeah. Well, because he looks very different than the men that live in New Donk City. Like there's
yeah.
So
this
from
is
the same
so
world?
many questions.
No, this is outside the Mushroom Kingdom. So he's, story-wise, there's the evil wedding planners that are working with Bowser to plan out Bowser's
All
proposed
wedding planners, right?
wedding to Princess Peach, and so Mario has left the Mushroom Kingdom chasing after Bowser and Peach to try to save Peach.
Got it. And full disclosure, I haven't had a chance to play it like these guys. I've been here actually working on the show, which is why I've been a little quiet. But how would you describe it as different? And the more I see and hear about it, was it sort of does it take any inspirations from what the Zelda team was doing? It seems like it's almost like there's a little bit of a new direction there, but maybe I'm misreading it, meaning there's a little more openness, right? Like go off the path.
Yeah. I mean, certainly I think it's not going to feel like what you've expected from a traditional Mario game before,
Yeah.
and partially that's because Koizumi-san and Motokura-san, their real goal has been to really fill the game with as much surprise as possible. And so what they said was they really wanted, they've taken this theme of the Odyssey or the journey. Mario is visiting these places he's never seen before. Obviously, a place like New Donk City may look familiar to us. You can take the boy out of New York, but you can't take New York out of the boy.
Take the donk out of the boy.
That's right. But when you're there as Mario, you don't really know what you can and can't do, and so it sort of encourages you to experiment and try these different things, whether it's with the hat or whether climbing up or just trying to figure out okay, I'm at the bottom, how do I get up to the top of a skyscraper when I'm Mario?
And I think one of the things that really keeps that flow open is that when you do get to the top of the skyscraper and you collect a moon, as we just saw, which isn't a star or a shine.
Right.
It doesn't just say, you got a moon, and then back you out of the level.
No.
You get to keep going.
You get to keep going, yeah.
And then I thought it was interesting, like you mentioned Odyssey obviously is the theme here, and we're seeing levels that we've never seen in a Mario game before, but New Donk City obviously is really tied in with Donkey Kong. You've got Pauline, as a mayor in there and all that. Are there more elements like that in the game where it harkens back to other Nintendo titles?
Which again, it makes no sense. Pauline is the mayor of New Donk City, and Donkey Kong used to kidnap her. I don't understand this political infrastructure.
But is there a tie-in? Or are we saying like kind of Donkey Kong, Mario, the worlds are so intertwined that it makes sense there, or is there more coming?
Well, that I think you'll just have to play the game and find out.
I had a feeling you would say that, weirdly.
I mean, but certainly within Super Mario Odyssey, there are callbacks to past games. You can see things in there. There's I don't know if you've seen the rockets that shoot up, which may look familiar from long ago. There's obviously the 8-bit levels, which are a lot of fun. There's pipes that you can warp into, and it puts you flat into an 8-bit wall, and then you're playing 8-bit style. And the great thing there is as Mario goes on his journey, and you'll notice it in some of these videos that you see here, but you'll find obviously your typical coins, which you can use to spend on things, but you'll also find these strange shaped coins. So you might see like purple triangle coins, and those become the currency of the kingdom that you're in. And you can use the coins and the currency to purchase outfits. And so you can get Mario in sort of like a zoot suit. And then when you're Mario in a zoot suit and you're running around and you go into the 8-bit pipe, it's Mario in a zoot suit in 8-bit style popping up, and you're running around.
Which is really cool. It reminded me of sort of the amount of different outfits that we had in Mario Maker. And speaking of which, I actually did see that outfit available in one of the stores in the game. You can go in, trade in your coins, get the full-on yellow and red with the hard hat Mario Maker look, and then jump into the game and keep going. And I think that level of customization is really cool, and we haven't really seen it in a 3D Mario game per se. I mean, we've seen power-ups, so the cat power-ups obviously, but this is very different. And yeah, we're taking a look at some of the 2D stuff in this game, which I was immediately in love with.
And here you see, again, this is Mario in his sort of explorer's outfit, as if he's gone on safari.
Is that unique to this level, or is this an element throughout the game, the 8-bit kind of 2D switch?
You'll see it in a few different places.
Okay,
cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I noticed that although this does take a lot of cues from Mario 64 and Sunshine, we haven't necessarily seen a hub world per se. Is everything connected sort of by that ship that he flies? It kind of looks like a huge top hat.
It doesn't just kind of.
Oh, it
really definitely looks like a huge top hat. And if you're on the show floor, you can go get a little selfie with the top hat ship and Mario in the booth. But yeah, so essentially the power moons power the top hat ship, and then you collect more power moons, and that enables you to travel to new kingdoms. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And there is a different currency in each area too, right?
Yeah.
And here we're looking at one of the other new sort of power-ups in this game, which is like a Moai statue, but
something like
with
that.
Cool sunglasses.
Yes.
And when he puts it on, he's able to see areas in the map that don't exist.
Oh, wow.
But he can't jump. And when we played earlier, we noticed a section where you had to sort of look at the environment, find a platform that you couldn't get to, realize that you couldn't jump on it, and then kind of blind walk across it as Mario.
Yeah.
Which I think scales to that level of challenge that we want from these kind of games, right?
Yeah, I mean, they've definitely, there's a lot to discover, and if you want to discover everything, certainly, there's I'm going to go sort of the most straightforward and simplest path through the game, but if you want to get everything, there's going to be a lot of challenge to it.
All right. Well, we've got to take a quick break. This special E3 edition of Nintendo Voice Chat will be right back after this.
IGN Live at E3 2017 is presented by Atomic Blonde, in theaters July 28th, and Omen by HP.
Someone set me up. Someone from the inside. MI6. CIA. Everyone's involved. No, this only ends one way.
Welcome back to a special edition of Nintendo Voice Chat. So special that Bill Trinen from Treehouse is joining us today. Bill, thanks for making it to NVC. We're going to take a look at some more Odyssey footage in just a second. To contextualize it, this is from your Treehouse stream, because immediately after your Nintendo showcase, you just played games all day, and it was wonderful to see.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at some more stuff. I believe we're back in New Donk.
Yeah, so what we're seeing here is the cap throw there. You can play the game with the Pro Controller, of course, but if you really want to get the most out of it, you're going to want to take the Joy-Con, play with one Joy-Con in each hand. And what it does is, obviously, you've got simple cap throw motion. You can swing both hands together, and he'll do this right here, this spin attack that goes around. You can also, you swing both straight down, and he'll throw the cap straight down. If it hits anything, then it shoots straight forward. And you can throw it straight up, so it gives you a lot of kind of advanced maneuvers with the cap when you're doing that.
And now possession is sort of a major hook in this game now, right?
Yeah.
And also using your hat as kind of an additional platform. It's very odd that Mario's been wearing this hat for decades now, and for the first time we're seeing completely new uses for it.
Well, this is not his normal cap. This is Cappy. So Cappy is, there's a little bit of backstory to what happens as Bowser is heading off with Princess Peach. But Mario encounters Cappy, and Cappy kind of becomes Mario's cap, and that's where he gets the possession power.
Is he from the same Talking Nintendo hat universe as the Minish Cap?
Minish Cap. This is, you know what? Maybe we're seeing a crossover. Who knows?
I'm only going to hit you with the weird
Don't
questions.
do that. What's your, there are obviously a lot of things you can do in this game, lots of things to take over in capture. What's your favorite capture that you've encountered?
Well, it's funny because the way that they're doing it is, obviously in a typical Mario game, you have sort of the transformations. You get the Fire Flower, you become Fire Mario, you get, you become Penguin Mario in the new Super Mario Brothers games and things like that. And this game, really the transformations are handled by Cappy, and you possess things, but in a lot of cases, it's different from a past Mario game where they have just a few of these transformations that they carry all throughout the game. In this case, you'll encounter, as you saw in the video, there's a frog that you encounter in one of the early levels, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, I'm going to become a frog.
Yeah.
I
know you're one of the ones with the bullet bill, which was really cool,
of course,
right?
the bullet bill. The bullet bill has probably got to be one of my favorites, just because, number one, great name.
Yeah.
But number two, haven't you always wanted to be a bullet bill?
I've always wanted to be on the bill side, that end of it. It's pretty cool to see all of this stuff come together and notice that some of it almost feels optional in that I played a section earlier today where you could play as a bullet bill and it would get you to another section of the level, or you could just kind of sheer platform your way up there. Mm-hmm. Now, on top of that, we saw for just a few seconds there, we're seeing some really cool platforming stuff here that reminds me of kind of the sections in Super Mario Galaxy when it would get trickier, the camera would go sideways, and it felt like you were playing sort of an old school 2D Mario game. But one of the moves we saw, maybe we'll get to see it again, is Mario has a roll now. It's like a barrel roll, or almost like a Sonic the Hedgehog type thing. It's like, and you can chain it endlessly.
So you start with the crouch, and then you go into the roll, and it has. If you're trying to roll uphill, you're going to run out of momentum.
Right.
But, when you're on the sand dunes and you're rolling downhill, it's super fun. If you are running out of momentum, you can hit the button again and get a little bit of a boost for your roll again. But yeah, he just kind of rolls around through the level. And
it reminds me of the way we saw Link in Breath of the Wild this year. Just add a few moves, and they weren't too over the top. Surfing was, but for the most part, it felt natural. Now, I've been a 3D Mario fan for my entire life. The Mario moveset in Mario 64 obviously originated in Donkey Kong 94. It's the first time we got to see stuff like the backflip, the triple jump. All of those things are back, I assume?
Yep, backflip, the long jump, the triple jump.
I tried them all. It's pretty cool. And wall jump too.
Yeah, wall jump.
Which I love. It's like you do the backflip into a full run, into a bun stop, jump in the air, triple jump into the wall, land on the roof and roll, 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 flip, triple jump, keep going. I think this is the kind of thing that yes, you can just run around, you can collect stuff, you can beat the game, it's pretty simple. But I think the speedrunning community is going to go nuts with this game.
Well, yeah, and because that's, the other thing is that with you not getting pulled out every time you grab a moon, completely changes the dynamic for speedrunners in terms of how they want to go through a level, what they want to collect, what they don't want to collect, and it even gives you the ability to have different objectives within a set level. If are you trying to speedrun the level just to get to the end, or are you trying to speedrun it to get every single power moon in the level, or whatnot? So
I'm still trying to piece together some of this, and apologies if everybody else gets it. So how much takes place in the city versus outside the city? Put it in percentages.
The city is part of Metro Kingdom. We're also showing the Sand Kingdom
Yep,
in the
saw
E3, this
that.
playable build. We showed, I think, a Forest Kingdom on Nintendo Treehouse Live this week. So that's just
right,
a
they're each
little bit of a
kingdoms.
sample, and certainly, different. Not every kingdom is obviously exactly the same size, but they're varying scope. But there will be a good selection of kingdoms for you to play.
We've played a lot of Mario games, so is this the biggest Mario game yet? It looks huge.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly, at least based on everything I've seen, it looks a lot bigger than what we've seen before.
Also, you can obviously fall off these skyscrapers,
Yeah.
but you don't take damage, right? So
Yeah.
you're being very polite and kind to the player here.
It's a huge change.
Yeah, well, and you kind of, I mean, when you're in a city this big, you kind of want to encourage people to take risks,
Right.
and there are areas where if you fall off, then you'll lose a life, but that also is something that's different now. Is that sort of the lose a life, you just pay coins and you're right back in the level. So it's no longer one-up mushrooms and things like that. It's actually you're just paying coins and then you're right
And
back.
so what
from
happens
your
when you
last
run out of
checkpoint.
coins?
That's a good question.
How does the mechanic of paying coins work? Is it just at that screen of like?
Yeah,
oh,
it just pops the coins out of your collection, and yeah. But of course, you're collecting coins because you want to use the coins to buy outfits and things like that. So you obviously don't want to spend your whole time losing
Gotcha.
lives,
It's
even though I know that's how you normally play.
Yes,
Fran.
definitely.
Now,
Wait, it's the coins from that world, though.
Yeah.
No, it's the typical Mario gold coins
Okay,
are the
those ones get you
those are the
back.
ones that are your life currency now, so to speak.
That's like a universal currency
Yeah.
in this world.
Yeah.
Now we obviously saw tons of multiplayer stuff in 3D World and some subtle multiplayer stuff in Galaxy. I was wondering if there's any plan to sort of even bring anything like that, sort of kind of like a sidekick mode.
So that's a very good question.
It is.
It is.
We would like a very good answer.
You did
Yeah,
this thing with your hands.
That's great.
Yeah, to make me forget I asked you.
So what's funny is obviously Nintendo Switch, really big feature of the system is the Joy-Con. You can pop 2 Joy-Con off. You can hand one over. You can share the joy, so to speak.
Yes.
So we do have plans for a little something that'll take advantage of that.
Awesome.
But I actually don't know to what extent we've talked about it. I think it was set to be talked about today on Treehouse Live, but I'm not sure. Now I can't remember. So
Cool.
I tune in and see what we have to talk about.
No, that's good to know because I think like one of the core tenets of the Nintendo Switch, and I think in like your philosophy in first-party software this year especially, has been that sort of pop the Joy-Cons off and have local multiplayer. It's
Yeah.
something that I've enjoyed just on flights with like friends and my wife, and just sort of being like,
Yeah.
hey, we're gonna play Mario Kart together. So watching this and coming off of 3D World, I kept saying to myself like, there's got to be some way to have some kind of multiplayer component.
Yeah, I mean, I would think maybe more akin to what we did with the Galaxy game.
Yeah, sure.
So
Yeah.
helping.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I had a 6-hour flight with my wife and kids, and normally the kids would just, they're kids, they bicker all the
Of course,
time, and
yeah.
we just popped the Switch up on the little tray.
The tray
and
table.
2 of them sat down and they just played Snipper Clips for 6 hours, and it was amazing.
Oh, it's the best.
That's really why
That
you guys made the Switch.
actually the problem. Yeah, then we had the reverse problem, which was stop.
Yeah,
exactly.
well, it's a very vocal game. You're like,
Stop having so much fun, kids.
cut me open
down.
and climb on top of me. You say a lot of strange things playing that game.
Yeah.
I'm completely in love with Super Mario Odyssey. I think it's like it's pretty much the return that people wanted. Not to say that it deviated in the wrong direction. Every Mario game has been something very, very wonderful, but people have really looked for that kind of return to a much more open style of play. This actually is the area right here that we're looking at where I first noticed that you can possess a bullet bill and move around and get some cool stuff, or you can go up this way. And obviously, the platforming does not seem like this doesn't really seem like it's going to be a very easy game. I saw even during your demo during your showcase, the player was kind of skipping over some of the purple coins, and I was kind of yelling at the TV, being like, "Don't miss those!
Yeah.
Like, you got to get everything before you keep going."
Yeah.
Yeah. When I first played it, the impression I had was that it was like the garden from Mario 64. Like you enter this area, you see the trees, you see the castle, but you don't exactly know what to do with all that. So you start exploring.
Yeah.
And what you guys have built now, you gave us a city. So I don't know what a lamp post does, or the top of a lamp, or a manhole cover, or a cab, or any of
Exactly.
these things. So it's really cool to get that playground to discover all that again.
Yeah.
Or this new kind of stone cougar that Mario rides. It's
Yeah, what
like
is that?
He's got a mount now. Like,
Oh, yeah, there was a little something like that in the trailer, wasn't there?
I mean, it feels like a sort of historical and universal mixtape of things from all over the world thrown in there. Like anything Mario can throw his hat at, he will be able to possess. Now, some things that you throw your hat at, you actually don't become.
Yeah.
There's a rule system here somewhere in all of this insanity.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, people who wear hats, you can't possess them because they can't wear 2 hats. That would be silly.
Except
right?
the guy in the hat shop has like 8 hats.
Well, but he's special, right?
Okay, all right. I'm finding holes in this.
Brian, try to keep up with these hat rules, man.
I don't get a lot of opportunities to sit down with Bill and ask him completely insane questions like, why is Pauline the mayor of New Donk City?
Why wouldn't she be?
You're right. You're right. That's the answer.
And of course, at E3, she's the mayor, but she needs to throw the festival, so you've got to find the musicians, and they bring the musicians, and so she's the mayor, but she does more than just being the mayor. She's got a lot going on.
I saw one of her town halls. It's a bunch of people hanging out, and they're all dancing. Yeah. And if you leave Mario idle, he starts dancing himself too, which I thought was a cool little Easter egg. Do we get a lot of sort of like contextual moments like that from Mario in this game?
Oh yeah, I mean it's there, and like I said, you'll see he's got different outfits, and you'll kind of see some things with that, and he's got obviously different things that he'll interact with in terms of what's going on in the different kingdoms and the different characters, and sometimes you'll even, if you were exploring the Sand Kingdom in the E3 version, you would actually, there's a spot where if you go running off into the desert away from the town, there's like a taxi cab buried in the sand, and there's one of the guys from New Donk City standing there, and so you've got to figure out what happened and how do you help them out, and it's just packed full of really interesting, crazy things.
And we did get to see this, this possession of electricity here to travel across power wires.
It's like that movie. Remember that horror movie? Where the dude is
there you go.
electricity?
Here's one of the rockets.
Shocker.
I mean, I remember this from Looney Tunes. I don't know about the horror movie. Will Mario be able to possess other sort of elements? Like
metaphysical.
Yeah, metaphysical properties. Can he become like fire? Can he become water? They don't have hats.
I don't know. I mean, the hat might catch on fire.
That's true.
That's true.
So many questions.
Yeah.
When is Mario Odyssey out?
October, I believe, 27th, I think, is right.
And this is pretty much this is the big first-party game for fall on Switch. I
Yeah.
think it's the one everybody's looking forward to.
Yep.
In a year where we got Breath of the Wild and we're getting Splatoon and ARMS and Mario Kart and now Mario Odyssey, this is a tremendous first-party year for Nintendo for the Switch.
It is, and there's, I mean, you forget in there, obviously, we've got, Mario Kart was last month. We've got ARMS actually on Friday of this week. Right? Splatoon 2 is next month. August is Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, which is, they're kind of described as like XCOM with Mario and the Rabbids.
Yeah.
Why are we not talking about Metroid? Seriously.
We'll
So
get
for
there,
the
we'll
last
get
like
there.
19 years, I've sat here going, Metroid.
You're going to have to wait a little while longer because we have to let Bill go. Bill, thank you so much for coming and, just really entertaining all of the stupid things I got to ask you today.
Well,
and these guys who asked much smarter questions.
I will humor Pear just a little bit. Obviously, we've got Metroid Samus Returns coming on Nintendo 3DS in September. It's great.
It's legit.
It is.
It's legit.
It's got new abilities. It's got new kind of Aeon and things like that it's using, but it's what you want.
And who's making Prime? You forgot to mention.
Wait, okay.
Prime.
All right, Pear.
Oh, I think I hear the music.
That's the music.
man.
We will be talking about Metroid in just a moment. Bill, thank you so much for coming back. Stick around. Nintendo Voice Chat continues right after this short break.
Live at E3 2017 is presented by Omen by HP and Atomic Blonde in theaters July 28th.
Someone set me up. Someone from the inside. MI6. CIA. Everyone's involved. Now, this only ends one way.
Welcome back to IGN Live at E3 and a special edition of Nintendo Voice Chat. Before you rip me apart in the comments, Bill had to go. I know we could have sat there for the rest of our lives and asked him all these questions about Metroid.
He wouldn't have answered.
Yeah.
He would have never
so,
answered.
well, this comes back to what we're very good at here at IGN, wild, rampant speculation. So let's talk about Metroid. Now, we got 2 new Metroid announcements here at E3, 2 more than I think any of us have expected in the last decade or so. Outside of Federation Force and Other M, which has been, now far in the distance.
Yep.
Those games have those fans. I'm not going to say anything about that. But let's talk about those games. Let's talk about Metroid Samus Returns, which is the one that we got the most information about.
Yeah.
It's
3DS.
Yeah, 3DS, which I think immediately a couple people were a little bit surprised about. Like, why not Switch? The answer to that is because there's millions of 3DSs out there. And also, we've been asking for a dual-screen Metroid game for like 15 years now.
Yeah, at least to return to the age of 2D Metroid games, right? We had, obviously, with Zero Mission, we had such a great 3DS game, a great 2D Metroid game. And it was just kind of confounding that it disappeared from handheld systems for so long. And then announced this as Samus Returns, and the immediate impression is, oh, this is a remake of the Game Boy game, right?
Yes.
Probably, would you say, one of the weaker Metroids, right?
Well, I think I was so buzzing from confusion and excitement that I didn't even put that together at that moment. It took me a minute.
Yeah. Hardware back then just was not powerful enough for what they were trying to do on Game Boy, right?
But that's then you see the footage and you realize, wait,
that's
I don't remember any of these moves in the original game.
Yep.
Certainly the way the game looks is very different, right? It's made by a capable 2D, kind of polygonal 2D developer.
Yeah, Mercury's team.
Yeah, Mercury's team, but it has all these powers. You see her there using this swipe move to attack an enemy and defend against an attack. So this is not a pixel per pixel remake or just a graphical upgrade.
Yeah, and if you want proof, I mean, if you own a 3DS and you're excited for this game, which I assume you are, hop on the eShop and download the original Virtual Console version of the original version of this game. It's a couple bucks. It's all in green and black and white.
She's very big on the screen, right?
It was kind of most known for the time for, it was one of the largest sprites. Very animated, very cool. And I think it really harkened back to what Samus as a bounty hunter meant, because the crux of this game was Samus was sort of dropped into this world and had to hunt down every single one of these Metroids. And there was a counter, and you basically had to get that counter to 0 and defeat them all. So we had them on IGN Live this week. They did a demo for us and Nintendo showed us what this game can do. Obviously, lots of new stuff. But I wanted to ask you, Fran, because you're a huge Prime fan.
Yeah.
Always have been. Did you notice a lot of the sort of musical cues and UI and sort of like Prime flair in this game? I was picking up on some of it.
I definitely picked up on the flair. I will say it was a little loud in our war room press room here as we have it set up. But I definitely saw it once, they started playing the game, and when they started doing some of those 3D swipe-ins, you can see for sure the inspiration from Prime. And as you talk about it being 2D or 3D, it is interesting because it's not just 2D.
Yeah,
we
saw it right there, right? Like that dynamic camera pop in.
Yeah, it is 2D, but meaning it has this very 3D vibe. But the biggest thing that has stood out for me in this is it's just high action.
Yes.
Like more than ever. I mean, the bullets seem faster. There's way more particles. Look at that. That gun just has so much going on.
It's just
seeing
quick.
So many different guns.
Yeah, it's quick for a Metroid game. And it's like, I mentioned Other M before. That game had first-person stuff, third-person stuff, 2D stuff almost. But what it did really have was those sort of like pop-in dynamic camera shifts, huge quick moves. I mean, it was a sort of ninja Samus.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that really quick play here, which I think is a great addition for the series. It's been so long since we've seen Samus in 2D again.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the same gimmick, right? I thought the Other M controls were gimmicky. I did not like controlling a 3D model of Samus with a D-pad in this 3D world. It kind of felt too digital for that world, especially when you're like moving into the distance. And so they did that because they wanted you to play it sideways and then point at the screen, and this kind of zoom in to me became very gimmicky.
Yeah.
Like in the end it worked, but it wasn't that awesome. I'm not seeing that here. This seems like vintage, awesome 2D Metroid. I mean, Super Metroid, one of my all-time favorite games of all time.
It is my all-time favorite.
That's what it looks
It's
like.
your favorite game of all
Super
time?
Metroid is my favorite game.
Oh, well,
of all
that's
time.
awesome. Because I was going to ask you then, like, does this feel like a spiritual successor? I think some people were a little upset that we didn't get pixel art for this game, but I got over it really quick.
Really, I didn't hear that conversation. As the game was being shown and announced, I went from like skepticism. It's another 2D, Metroid, and I do like them, but I just felt like, I don't know, that was something missing, I would say.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, here comes another, and then it's another developer, I guess. But as it sort of opened up very quickly, I was like, whoa, like this looks great. Like, and I really gained confidence fast looking through it.
I think you were justifiably sort of hesitant watching the initial footage once the shock wore off, saying, wait a minute, is this like a 2.5D game? Is this one of those games with like multiple planes? Why is it on 3DS?
Yeah, they try to reinvent things. Like, you worry about that. And then I saw they're not reinventing. They're like, it looked like shot of adrenaline to it, quite honestly. She's uppercutting things, getting in fights with them. I think it looks great. It wasn't playable on the show floor, is that right?
It is.
Not for
It's kind of behind
France.
But it's like, not for France.
If you look at the moves and everything, it feels like, I apologize for my voice, it's really going.
As you should.
We've been screaming about Metroid. What can we do?
God, I was so excited. But it's like this greatest hits of all her moves. I mean, you see her pulling herself up to the ledge when she's jumping. She can shoot into all directions. Like, it looks really smooth. But you also get some of the stuff that you only really saw in, well, I guess you saw it in the Game Boy and then Metroid Prime, where the morph ball has many more actions than it did in Super Metroid. Right. Like, you can stick to a wall and go up and all these things. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I was going to say power-ups, and I'm glad you brought that up. When I saw they basically had the magnetic, morph ball, which we saw in Metroid Prime. Immediately, I was thinking about that question. Yeah, that's inspiration from Prime. And then just looking through it, they showed quite a few power-ups. And again, that gave me a lot to be excited about. It almost looks like this could be a Metroid game where you have more power-ups than ever. And when you talked about, the original Metroid 2 being about seeking out and getting all these things, that is true. But Metroid has really always been about the adventure of powering up and getting to that next place.
Yeah.
And I know you know that, but like that for me especially is like what is most enjoyable.
I totally agree.
They were showing all these things about unlocking new areas.
And we saw this now in Prime. One of the major hooks was scanning, right? And it was sort of story as told through environmental scanning. And in Super Metroid, you had that kind of scan visor thing that opened up that purple cone that would show you sort of secrets and areas and stuff like that. Here we saw there was kind of this like scan pulse thing that would show like a weakness in a wall. And I think it's optional. So players want to do the classic Metroid thing of just shoot everything constantly until something blows up and you can crawl through it. Feel free to do that. But if you're getting tired of that, you can just shoot a scan out there and make it work.
Very Super Metroid in that respect, right?
Yeah.
You didn't have to use the scan visor, but like when you first discovered what it did and that there were like all these hidden walls, you're like, this is cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just use this and see what the world is really like when I have this visor on.
I wanted to talk a bit about Samus's character design in this game.
I was going to ask about that.
Because it's super cool, and I'm a big fan of the Prime series. She's incredibly bulky in those games. She's got those huge football shoulder pads. This is that kind of like lean, sort of quick-moving Samus, based on a lot of the concept art behind the original game, the box art cover, what we saw with Zero Mission specifically.
Yes.
She'll get powered up. I mean, right now you're seeing her without the power, so she gets the big bulky shoulders, but she looks very like tall and skinny
and got those cool
in these
flips.
shots here. I mean, this is her most basic suit right there.
And I really like the fact this feels like something they would have done during Metroid's anniversary, right? Yeah. Which they kind of just moved past. I guess they weren't ready yet. I'm glad they are now. But we're also getting Amiibo to go with this game, which we saw that were really cool looking.
The Metroid, it's squishy.
A squishy Metroid. Yeah. Everyone just wants to touch that thing, which is very, very funny because it's a deadly, deadly creature. Yeah. And they're really celebrating the art.
It's not real.
It's real to me. They're really celebrating this sort of character model behind Samus in this, and the original box art, for the Game Boy version, we're now seeing, for the promotional stuff for this game, and they're making Amiibo out of that pose. They're like very like on the knees, arm up in the air. Like, it's super cool. I'm still buzzing that this is actually happening.
And they revealed it after their spotlight. It was kind of an odd reveal where we knew something was coming because they're like, oh, watch Treehouse. We're like, okay, what is it going to be, like a new Pokemon game? We had already been buzzing from the other reveal, which I guess we'll talk about, but Then you watch and suddenly they show this game.
I know.
You know, I felt like, I mean, that would have been an awesome moment in the spotlight, but they felt that they should focus on the Switch and move the 3DS stuff out, which, you know, was kind of an interesting decision to me because this is big news.
I don't support the decision, but
Yeah, I know. I
don't
agree.
get why they run Spotlight like that. Like I get, let's just do Switch, but they would live so well next to each other. Like that, what I probably would have done is you unveil this and you get this awesome trailer. You think that's all you get for Metroid, but no,
and then
there's
you get
one
the
more
Metroid
thing.
Prime 4 logo. People would have lost it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We did lose it here, but still, like together as one, you'd be like, wow, Metroid's really back.
We lost
we feel the way now, but
we lost it slowly over the course of an hour, rather than just like in this. I think Pear's voice would just be completely gone.
Exactly. But it looks awesome, man. I can't believe how far along it is.
Oh yeah, I think that's the most special thing about it is that this is like I was like, okay, that's a trailer. They ran it. It's fine. They brought it on our show. Somebody was demoing it within feet from me. I couldn't actually get out of my chair and go play it myself, but I believe that they were doing it. You know, they dropped into some poisonous venom area and died in front of us, and it was like, okay, that's what death looks like. I wanted to talk quickly about the 2D Metroid series specifically because it's a weird one. We had the original Metroid, obviously, for the NES. We had the second one for Game Boy, which is now, this is a remake of. We had Super Metroid, and from there we didn't hear anything for a little while, and we got two on Game Boy. One was Fusion, which is original, and then one was Zero Mission, which is a remake of the NES version. Then we didn't get a 2D Metro game until now, which is a remake of the Game Boy version. So, like, a statistical percentage of these games have been remakes of themselves, but they feel so different and so evolved from their originals that I don't think anyone's really worried about it, right?
No.
Like, you look at Zero Mission versus the NES version, it's night and day. You look at this game versus the original, and it's, you know, not even night and day. It feels like watching it's a black and white movie versus something that came out in 2017.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it takes for Nintendo to outsource a game to a developer that it hasn't worked with that much, right? They want to make sure that the developer can nail the feel of the franchise. And so I think it's an easy starting point to say, okay, why don't you tackle remaking a game? Like start with a Majora's Mask or an Ocarina of Time, right? And in this case, start with a Game Boy game. And I bet the moment they started, they said, it's dated. We have to add all these different things to it. And, you know, from the footage, it looks like just a ton of new stuff. Learned from Prime, learned from Super Metroid, all these games that followed.
And it's cool to see a map.
Yeah.
We didn't have a map on the Game Boy because we only had one screen. There wasn't a lot going on.
Very true.
So any final thoughts on this game besides just sheer excitement? I can't wait for it.
Well, it's just, I mean, I'm just amazed that there are two Metroid games coming.
Yeah.
We know a lot about this game already. We don't know anything about the other one.
There was an era where we had
logo.
Prime games and Game Boy Advance Metroid games happening in synchronicity, and I never thought we'd have that again. And we have it. Fran, how do you feel about all this?
Just that Metroid's back. I mean, I'm beside myself actually, but without seeing Metroid Prime yet, it still doesn't feel, you know.
Or knowing the developer, right?
Or knowing the developer.
Yeah.
So it's early to say because that's very precious to me.
That's right.
That's, you know, also one of my favorite all-time series. And so without it answered, but I mean, come on, it's coming. I actually, going into E3, I thought there's just no chance anymore. Like, I've given up.
Yeah, I mean, we should mention, you know, Retro is not working on this. They're possibly working on something else. Key figures from the Metroid Prime series and Metroid series are you know, helping out with this project. But outside of a number 4 and the Metroid Prime logo,
the squishy music.
The squishy music is nice. That's all we really know. So all we can do is sort of just like, you know, just think
It'll
about it.
have the Prime music. I know that much.
We know that.
It won't stop us from speculating about the developer for many NVCs to come.
Yes, and
we have a lot of stuff to talk about.
We do, and we have many, many NVCs to come all year right here on IGN. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on iTunes. If you're on iTunes, make sure you rate us, subscribe, tell your friends. We are the best Nintendo podcast in the world. That's the title I'm giving us right now.
Thanks for the review, Brian.
That's the first review right there. Per, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Fran, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And Bill, thank you so much. Remember, this is not the only show we do here at IGN. We've got plenty more, and we've got tons more E3 coverage right here all week long. So don't go away and keep watching E3 right here on IGN.
IGN Live at E3 2017 is presented by Atomic Blonde, in theaters July 28th, and Omen by HP.
Someone set me up. Someone from the inside. MI6. CIA. Everyone's involved. Now, this only ends one way.